Doric once again bowed her bow. She said, "So until it stops working completely we can't stop all the attacks." Doris's arrow went straight into the monster's head. It was hit. Its whole body and head fell backwards, creating a deep and wide hole. The mother hugged her trembling daughter and asked, "Are you saved?" The child hugged her mother and said, "That's so good, mother." The mother comforted her child, "Be good. It's okay now." Doris stood proudly holding the scepter. She smiled, then closed her eyes and said, "The old seal is in effect. The Lady of Siva's family has answered our prayers. Let's move quickly, everyone. Gather up and retreat. Try to look after those who don't have the old seal drawn on them. Head to the teleportation rune right now." Those female elves hesitated a bit. Doris spoke up to comfort them, "No need to be afraid. Because hundreds of thousands of years later, the great silver goddess will still protect the Iris family." Knelt on the ground on their knees. The elves knelt on the ground with their hands clasped together and raised their heads to look up at the sky. Praise the Silver Lady. The glory of the Iris family now lives on forever. And Doris breathed in softly, thought. As expected, that person had already foreseen the deadly crisis that the Iris family was facing at that time. Doris raised her hand to touch a lock of her hair and thought. That acquaintance is indeed very strong. Those hunters are right. He can be judged by the 4 words omniscient, omnipotent. She also looked at the sky and whispered, somewhat admiringly. Doris placed 2. She put her finger on her chin in thought. Miss Silver must really value him. I just don't know what his true identity is. Doris imagines a love story, the passion between Lin G and Silver. Her face turned red, thinking, maybe he must be Silver's powerful right-hand man and most trusted person. Doris shook her head, her face red. Impossible. Okay. That's impossible. I really can't take a break like that anymore. This is too disrespectful. Doris regained her composure and sighed. It's time. Her whole body trembled slightly, thinking, I'm not very good at fighting. And I rely mainly on prophecy to get a head start on the enemy. I've reached my limit after continuously casting multiple high-cost spells. Doris stood still holding her scepter and looking at her child. The dream beast arose again. She thought, but I can't let down the people who trust me. Even if I try my best until I die. This is my fate as the High Priestess. In Doris's hand, she clutched the iris flower that the little girl gave her. Doris's face was serious. Her hands emitted a green light. At this time, I hope that after I die, my soul can enter the dream of the Silver Lady. Doris raised her staff high. The green light hovered around, creating a magic formation. She thought to herself, if only the dream beasts can stop attacking, my clan can exert its power better. Using life and flesh, what's left is the nutrients to launch the forbidden killer move. Come here, this is my final form of magic. Right above Doris's head, a giant circle with a huge plus sign appeared in the middle. The green light covered the entire forest. Tree roots lay deep underground. And right under the ground, tree roots grew right next to the monster's long body. Tree trunks stabbed, passing through the monster's body. Each branch tightly wrapped around a piece of the monster. The monster's blood shot out. Its body was tied tightly. Doris's hand holding the scepter continued trembling. She stood in the blue light and thought. The legend of the god seed in the spirit kingdom is truly overbearing. The rate at which my vitality is consumed is too fast and I can't recover in time. I have to endure a little more. At least when the clans retreat a little. I don't know if I can stand it or not. Doris spit out blood, but her face still had a smile and said. For more than 1,000 years, I will be a bourgeois, taking on the position of the high priestess of the family, protecting the whole family until now. It is for this moment that I bravely stand up. At this moment, Doris's eyes saw something. She saw cracks are cracking. Those monsters are gradually breaking out of the ground. She thought to herself, the crack in the underground world in the dream has indeed opened up again. The omen is indeed not wrong. These people walking underground are dream beasts that live in herds. At most in less than 1 minute, 2 or more underground walkers will come to the surface to participate in the battle. At that time, Doris's lips moved, whispering, it's really over. Doris let go of the staff. Her whole body was enveloped in blue light. She knelt down on the ground. There's no way to stop it anymore. I can only depend on I'll let those holy plants frantically compete for my remaining life. It won't be long before my life force will be exhausted. Doris's eyes were bleeding and she whispered, it will all end up here. Before closing her eyes, She saw countless monsters and tree branches that she had summoned fighting. It took so long. The clansmen must have you all gone. Her eyes closed. She raised her hand, hoping that all the glory of the Silver Lady will always be with everyone. Suddenly at this moment the green aura was frantically absorbing Doris's life force. Suddenly broke. Doris was caught by a black hand. Doris opened her eyes. She was bewildered. An invisible black figure was behind her, supporting Doris' whole body. That black figure looked like Lin G in reality. Speaking in a voice, "It's bad to dream about nightmare. Right, so let me help you." Doris's ears swayed slightly, thinking, this familiar sound, could it be that familiar person? Doris thought of Lin G, although the voice was very vague and even a bit scary. My hunch told me that there was nothing wrong with this person being that acquaintance. There was nothing wrong with the feeling. This is exactly like the feeling when I was in the bookstore. Doris silently let the dark shadow hang on her shoulder and wondered. But why did that familiar person come here? But this area is basically empty, any unusual fluctuations, nor any signs of foreshadowing. According to my feeling, behind me at this moment there is no existence of anyone at all. Could it be that did hallucinations appear before death? Doris thought there was something as blue as the sky, however the feelings transmitted from the skin around my waist and behind my ears were extremely real. As if there was an invisible person behind me using force. Absolute strength holds me tightly. But Doris contradicted her own thoughts as if a dark shadow appeared on that distant light. No. Wait. Before that I felt a gaze of a certain mysterious powerhouse staring at me. Now that I think about it, could it be that he is an acquaintance of Miss Silver? So has he been following me all this time? Here from the beginning it was under his control. The untraceable method of descent. And the magical old seal. Doris's whole body trembled. Thoughts were running continuously in her head. After all, it's an acquaintance. How strong is that? I cannot know all the truth. Doris sat there trembling. Her back seemed to be covered by an endless shadow and a red eye was staring at her. Staring at her, Doris thought, the only thing I know now is absolutely not to look back and face his existence. Otherwise the consequences will be very dire. Screen turned off. Let's go. Andrew was instructing the staff to work and asked, why is the screen suddenly dark? How is the situation over there? The employee who was working with headphones on did not respond. And Andrew was in a hurry. The employee said to the other side, how is the Iris family? What did you see anyway? Hello, answer quickly. But at this time the staff member who was wearing an intelligence headset suddenly covered his eyes and screamed, ah. Everyone in the room was confused. They quickly said, what's going on? Hurry up and hold him tight. Calm down a bit. Regain your reason. Andrew looked at the sweat drops. He looked at the screen that was turning off the silent lights. Right now the screens were black on the other side. Countless, no singles, were displayed. Countless messages rang out warning. The measurement test detected the existence of a super mysterious level. The system encountered an unknown error. The monitoring network, the ether, is about to collapse. All members quickly. Andrew trembled with his clenched fists. Thinking, why is that so? What happened in the end? What kind of existence is that? That went down there, Lady Doris. You must be safe and sound. Still on this side. Doris's hand was clenched tightly and she was trembling. The voice behind Doris was still saying, this insect is really ugly. Really, can't it be made more beautiful? The finger of the person sitting behind pierced Doris's face, pointing in the direction of the monster with its mouth wide open. Let's turn it into a cat. I only saw the monster in front of me with countless snouts and indescribably deep holes. But when it turned into a cat, it was a bit awkward. The black shadow behind Doris was like ink flowing out and rushed towards the monster. The monster opened its mouth wide, preparing to swallow the black shadow. The black shadow covered it like the dark sky was turned off. The black shadow obscured the light monster that appeared right in front of Doris. She opened her mouth wide in bewilderment. Then she saw where the monster stood. There were several white cats lying scratching their bellies. Doris's head was filled with questions and she looked at the cats in front of her. Her eyes bulging like goldfish. Doris looked at the cats running around. We're thinking, those cats are not capable. It can't be. This is neither an illusion nor a form of transformation. Instead, the entire structural form of a body has been transformed, becoming into a completely new existence. Doris was confused. Looking at the scratching cats, this is power that only the creator can create. Dark shadow behind Doris was staring at her. Doris was still bewildered. This is not simply something that a simple strongman can do. It is not at the level of destruction nor at the level of godhood. Doris trembled without saying anything. The words, only God can change creation according to his will. The dark shadow behind Doris spoke, the fire is extinguished. Right, okay, don't just turn around. Is it okay to return to the original state? Doris seemed to be sitting in a field of irises and that dark shadow was standing behind her. Doris seemed to have escaped from the illusion and sat silently. The fire was still spreading in the forest. After that, it was as if there was a heavy rain that extinguished the fire. Doris saw that the giant tree that she initially thought was dead was now intact. The whole forest returned to normal as if nothing had happened. Doris was bewildered, her head full of 3 dots. Her whole body trembled. The fleeing elves also looked at the scene in bewilderment. Someone shouted, Why is this happening? Where have all the dream beasts gone? Has the silver lady gone? Another person also shouted, This is truly a miracle. The glory of Iris will live forever. Someone else said, Did you hear a sound? Another person replied, Yes. It's like the indescribable voice of the high priestess is coming. We're so confused we can't hear clearly. If we try to understand it, our heads seem to explode. But I can't help but want to study it. This is scary. Is this level of power supposed to be at the level of a god? No, it must be more than that. And Doris on this side was still trembling and thinking, this is a miracle. Is he really an acquaintance of Lady Silver? I'm afraid his status is even higher. At that moment, Doris seemed to suddenly wake up. Doris tilted her head up and looked at the sky as if there were 2 song lines going around in her head, and then there was light in the world. God said, Let there be light. Doris put her hand on her chest. I asked myself, is this information? A decision of a hunch. Doris stood up and said, Thank you. At this time someone shouted, What happened here? At this time, a group of big-breasted, white-haired goblins rushed over and asked the high priestess, what exactly happened? These people were the elders of the Iris family. Doris turned her head and looked at them silently. Then she explained, Sir Silver, the person who controls the snow has sent a man who is an acquaintance of his. That man is his guardian. Stars. She thought to herself, no matter what level he is. If he is ready to help, then it means he is willing to help the Iris family. This is the path in order for the Iris family to survive. It must be firmly grasped. Thinking so, Doris explained to everyone, in the past, he gave us the old seal to fight against dreams. Protect us from the dream beasts. Unlike the primitive female kings who lead high walls to block dreams. Now this great acquaintance is with us. Asked a white-haired elder with a slightly red face. Is everything just now the power of that acquaintance? Doris remained silent but did not answer. But the holy tree behind Doris suddenly made a sound. The iris flower on the top of the holy tree that was thought to be dead has now bloomed again. The trunk of the little holy tree sprouted new flower buds. Doris turned her head, only to see Doris's holy tree continuously blooming iris flowers. Doris closed her eyes as if she heard something. She raised her voice and said, Now a new omen is coming appear. Lips turned yellow, I will tell the prophecy of the stars. Doris spread her arms as if to receive the golden light shining down. His eyes are about to open. He will soon waking up from the dream. It was he who extinguished the fire of disaster and rekindled the light of life. Protecting believers at all levels. Holding the key to universal knowledge. Doris looked like seeing Lin G sitting reading a book. He smiled, he holds all the power of space and time. And rotates the balance of the universe under his control. Overcoming the wall of distance. Between life and death and time. Doris raised her head to look at the starry sky. We don't dare to know his name. He is not the guardian of the stars but a shepherd who has watched the stars through many generations. Doris's eyes opened. She was startled and thought. The guide of the stars. I'm afraid that I'm the only one who knows to what extent the words just now have improved my understanding of that book. I can't think about it anymore. If I think about it again, I'm afraid I'll touch something that shouldn't be touched. Knowing even more, it's even more dangerous. Doris was surrounded by people asking about her with concern. Doris thought, after a while, I will visit the bookstore owner again. Thank you for that day with Lady Silver, and hope to once again receive her approval. Doris said to the others, but what is needed now is that we need to restore it again. The goblins left, they not paying attention to the ground. There was a stream of black air flowing. That stream of black air was staring at Doris from behind. Doris seemed to have the feeling of turning her head to look back, only to see that stream of black air writing a word. Lin G's eyes opened now. He was lying on the bed whispering, "It feels like a long night." Lin G sat up and stretched. The giant rain god was defeated by the ancient elemental king Du. How could I dream such a dream? Lin G put on her slippers and said, "More than that. I still remember the details in this dream very clearly and distinctly. I even had a dream in another dream. But meeting her again I already feel happy and joyful." Lin G looked at the Candela sword lying on the table. Even the short life of Candela feels so real. What an interesting dream. Lin G still remembers Inky. That reminds me. I seem to have dreamed that Inky finally changed into my appearance to go see Miss Doris. The problem here is that you have to change your color. Luckily this is just otherwise the dream will really scare people. Lin G scratched her head and sighed. I can't think about that dream anymore. Get up, wash your face and prepare to open it. Suddenly at this moment Lin G's eyes saw something. Lin G quickly pulled the curtains off the upstairs window. Lin G's eyes lit up and looked outside. He said, "The rain has stopped. It's great." Lin G hurriedly walked down the stairs. I've really had enough of the weather this month. It's always raining. The books seem to be moldy. The statue is still sitting on the table. Lin G opened the bookstore door to breathe in the air when the rain stopped. The air after the rain is so fresh. This feeling is like the feeling of blowing away all the senses. It's great. Lin G looked again, seeing smoke rising in another direction. He wondered, does it look like there's a fire over there? At this time Lin G's eyes saw something, a sound. All I saw right in front of Lin G was the figure of a white-haired girl covered in blood lying unconscious. That beautiful face was closing her eyes tightly. Lin G raised her foot and kicked the door open. Lin G hugged the unconscious girl in front of the door and went inside. Her whole body was torn. Lin G looked down at the girl lying in her arms. Why did I pick up this troublesome thing? However, if you leave her like that, the street that has just drained water after the rain could lead to her condition becoming more serious. You can see that the girl's face is already very bruised. If judged according to my experience, this girl's body was definitely injured by the explosion. Lin G placed the girl on a folding chair. It was possible that she was standing near the center of the explosion. Lin G took out his phone. He looked at the girl thoughtfully, but I can't judge her specific situation. Or should I just call the hospital to be sure? When Lin G picked up the phone to call, the phone made a sound. The number you have called is not being answered. Please try again later. Lin G was very confused and stood looking in the direction of the other girl. Lin G guessed to himself, that's right, there will definitely be many casualties on the other side that need emergency treatment. At this time, Lin G saw the name tag hanging on the girl's chest. He said, I've never seen this symbol before. Lin G picked up the name tag and looked at the man's face and speculated. Isn't this girl wearing her own shirt? Lin G looked back at the girl wearing a shirt covered in blood. The wound on this girl's body does not match the wound on her clothes. So it is only possible that she wore it after she was injured. This shirt. But someone who was seriously injured in the explosion could take off someone else's shirt as if nothing happened. Lin G considered and evaluated like a master, so it's possible this shirt was worn by someone else and that person must be the person on this news. Lin G put her hand on her chin in thought. According to a normal person's analysis, things are like this. I feel like the situation behind it is not that simple. There must be some conspiracy behind it. At this time, the girl coughed lightly. Her eyes gradually opened. Her eyes were blurry, faintly seeing Lin G's black silhouette. He raised his voice and asked, Are you awake? Lin G's silhouette in the girl's eyes became clearer. Lin G was asking, Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? First, don't move. Just lie there. The girl looked at Lin G and thought to herself, there are no ether fluctuations. Just a normal person. In that situation it's hard to gain trust from you. Lin G picked up the phone and said to the girl, Your wound is quite serious. I'm trying to contact the hospital. At this time, the girl reached out to pull the shirt on Lin G's arm. Stopped him from calling. She said, No need to contact the hospital. The girl sadly lowered her eyes and said, They want to kill me. I ran away on purpose. The girl sat up and wanted to go forward towards Lin G. She begged, Please save me. Please save me. Lin G heard that and imagined 100 plays in her heart. What is that? It's so serious. Is she being chased? Deep in my impression, Haibara, everyone who ran away from the organization fell on the street wearing an ill-fitting blouse. There's no way. Lin G realized in his heart, the cause of the fire could it be related to some dangerous secret research? Lin G's eyes seemed to see a fire in her eyes. If you think like this, everything seems to become clearer. And wrote, our Lin G drama today will be, Lin G imagines a man protecting a girl from behind who has to back away from the god killer's knife. The plot is that a researcher holds the chance. In the face of a criminal organization threatening family members, they did things that were not equal to beasts. Where two people were standing and exploded. The girl and the boy were sitting against the wall. The result was research. That officer, in anger, exploded the bomb. Then, knowing he wouldn't live long, he gave his clothes to this girl and asked her to run out for help. That was also the reason why. Why is this girl's entire body soaked? It's to prevent burns when running away. Lin G imagines the man smiling as he watches the girl in the robe leave. After imagining out a story full of drama, Lin G came to a conclusion in her heart, reasonable. It's too reasonable. In my head I'm starting to imagine that image. In Lin G's eyes the girl with the mirror, his face was emitting an extremely pitiful light. His face was still red. Lin G sighed and said, oh my god. He spoke in a compromising voice, okay. I won't do anything, but no matter what happens, even if you leave, I still have to check to see if your body is okay. External injuries can be treated well, but internal injuries cannot be seen, so this is not a joke. Lin G's face was serious. He raised his finger and said, if your internal organs are injured now, your life will also depend on it. Lin G grabbed the girl's hand and said, although I'm not a specialist, but I can evaluate common injuries. He squatted down and said to the girl, so you can cooperate with me a little first so I can do a checkup. How is your injury? Lin G's face turned a little red. He smiled and thought, how can someone who is both dedicated and honest be willing to help strangers overcome difficult situations like me? If this girl meets someone else, maybe she wasn't so lucky. Going through such a bad thing would definitely scare her. Definitely make her feel the warmth of the new world. Lin G grabbed the girl's hand, making the girl a bit bewildered. The girl thought to herself, what is this feeling? A flash of light flashed in the girl's eyes, then her face turned red and she withdrew her hand with a soft, sound. Lin G smiled and narrowed her eyes. Okay, if you feel uncomfortable anywhere, just say so. Lin G continued to touch the wound on the girl's leg. She groaned. Lin G touching the girl's leg. She thought, it's strange. It's clear that the outside of the body still has traces of the shockwave. But the internal organs don't seem to be broken. Only minor bone fractures. Lin G touching her knee. She thought, it's true that the internal injury isn't very serious and doesn't require going to the hospital. But it still needs good treatment. And the girl stared at Lin G, thinking, this is an unprecedented feeling. Before, but it was so hard for me to gain freedom. The girl's eyes narrowed, thinking, there is no danger, but this man in front of me cannot be completely trusted. I can imagine. The girl's hand tightened. Lin G raised her voice and asked the girl, is there anything else you want? Because I have to go down to the basement to get tools to treat my injury. It will take a while before I can come up here. The girl trembled and raised her hand to point towards the open door. The wind blew in and said, cold. Hearing that, Lin G quickly shyly scratched her face and stood up saying, oh my god. I forgot to close the door. Wait a minute. The girl looked at Lin G and turned away. Her eyes flashing with a blue aura. Thinking, yes, you can't attack. You can't make a sound. The girl sat up slightly and raised her hand to attack Lin G from behind. She secretly calculated in her heart, I have to move gently and gracefully like a bird. Cat killed the young man in front of her. But just as the girl was about to strike, behind her a black aura slowly enveloped her, causing the girl to stop. She turned her head to look, only to see the monster statue sitting still on the table suddenly emitting a ferocious black aura and growling at the girl. The monster statue's eyes flashed red light staring at the girl, causing the girl to panic. The girl trembled, sweat falling down her face thinking, this place is filled with ice-cold vibrations and giant ether waves. That statue is a living devil. The girl's eyes flashed with a blue light that covered the whole room and around the girl's body. But when the girl was about to attack, the statue remained still as if nothing had happened. The girl thought, my ether energy has interacted. Restored. can clearly be seen around the statue and the rose emitting a strange black aura. The girl looked at the rose in panic, thinking, is this flower also alive? Then the girl looked back at the iron door, even more frightened. These books are the same. Everything here is alive, only to see all around was darkness. The girl trembled, looking at Lin G's back as she closed the door. The girl wondered in her heart, is this person a normal person? How is that possible? The girl was very scared. She quickly ran back to the folding bed, lying still on the bed as if nothing had happened. The girl breathed a sigh of relief. She lay still, not daring to move. Her whole body was shaking even more than before. After Lin G closed the door, he turned his head to look at the girl. He looked at the girl lying with her arms raised staring at the ceiling. Lin G was confused, only saw that the girl's whole body seemed to have been rotated several times. Her round eyes looked at the ceiling. Her hands clenched. Lin G sighed and thought to herself, how can she look at the ceiling without blinking? How can she be a bit stupid, like a cute and brainless penguin? The penguin is in the cold Antarctica with his head full of questions. Lin G smiled, that reminds me. I myself don't lie down much, this chair is a lot. But the people lying on it are all patients. Lin G raised her voice and asked the girl, are you feeling better? The girl trembled and glanced at Lin G, pointing, seeing Lin G smiling brightly and not seeing her eyes. She said, wait for me a minute. I'll go down to the basement to get medical supplies. Just lie there silly and don't move around. The scared girl nodded repeatedly. Lin G saw that and continued to laugh. Yeah, that's cute. But in the girl's eyes, when Lin G was standing next to her talking, it was like there was a monster warning her. Lin G said, just relax. I'll come back and treat your wound right away. Quote. The girl trembled and didn't dare to move. After saying that, Lin G walked away. Relax. It's nothing. The girl's face turned pale. Lin G left without saying anything. Did you know anything about the girl's frightened situation? The girl was lying still on the bed. Nearby was a table with a monster statue on the ground. There were dark shadows or mouths waiting to eat the girl in her stomach. Her eyes, the bewildered girl said to herself in her heart. Does he mean that if I lie still, I can live until he comes back? The girl seemed to see a bunch of monsters in this room and asked herself, oh my god, what are these things? In this narrow bookstore, there are crowded creatures of nothingness. They gasped, dilated, stared and wandered. Every other time an invisible gaze glanced over my body. The girl imagined herself as small as an ant lying in the palm of Lin G's hand. All these terrifying and chilling things seemed to be just a normal thing in the eyes of this young man. That warm smile also instantly turned into a warning, and that devil is really scary. But why would such a scary person want to save me? While that girl was lost in thought, Lin G came over with the medicine box. Sorry for making you wait so long. It took me a while to find this. Lin G held the medical box on the table and looked at the girl. He said, I will sterilize this box first. He looked at the girl who was lying trembling non-stop, her head full of questions, asking herself in her heart, what happened? What happened? Why is she so tense? Lin G placed her hand on the girl's hand and answered herself. That's right. All children are afraid of injections and taking medicine. As a trustworthy adult, I need to play tricks at times like this, to lighten the atmosphere. Lin G thought so and immediately said, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly so tense? Are you afraid of me? It's okay. No need to be afraid. Lin G spoke, revealing her white teeth. He said in a very normal voice, but in your hands it's very strange. I'm not a monster that eats children like in a fairy tale. Listening to Lin G say that, the girl imagined as if there was a monster opening its beak waiting to eat her. The girl trembled, sweat falling down her face, thinking, so it's so. So this was his goal. So he brought me, a person with no ability to resist, to this place so he could easily handle it. Oh, I have to get out of here quickly. But when the girl saw the closed door in front of her eyes, she was petrified and thought to herself, I can't run away. The door is closed. It seems like I asked just now. He closed the door. What did I do? The girl seemed to be standing in the middle of a thunderstorm. The wind blew coldly. The girl silently lamented, my life is over. Sweat ran down the girl's cheeks. The girl pulled up her sleeves, thinking, because I can no longer, if you can't resist. It's better to be a little proactive. The girl trembled and put her arm out in front of her. Lin G saw with surprise. The girl pulled up her sleeve and aimed cut off one eye. The other eye looked at Lin G's voice as if she was preparing to go see her grandparents. Let's do it. If possible, don't hurt me. And Lin G looked at the other arm and her head was full question mark. Above Lin G's head, it was like a crow was flying by. And it was like a cloud was shooting lightning down. Lin G quickly explained, no, don't misunderstand. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. It's just a common joke in Nuo-jin. I have a friend I call Old Wild. He's a linguist. He likes to punish like this. Really, I'm not lying. And the girl looked at Lin G and asked, don't eat me. Really? Lin G looked at the medical equipment and saw that the girl had no longer misunderstood and sighed inwardly. Finally explained, am I not suitable for joking? Next time I should still tell my story. Better, at least that time Old Wild had a good reaction. Now that I remember, it seems like the girl in front also believed my joke. Really, what kind of person am I in their eyes? And the girl on this side also breathed a sigh of relief thinking, I'm still alive. Alive. Great. She turned her head slightly to look at Lin G. Did I misunderstand him? Could this man really be a good person? But when the girl saw the giant monster right above Lin G's head, she rejected that thought. She was silent, her head full of sweat, thinking, I really don't know if it's a misunderstanding or not. This man is absolutely not the good type. Lin G used forceps and cotton pads to blot the wound. The girl's injury, she was in pain but still tried to endure. Lin G said as she first aided the wound. It's okay, once you adapt, you won't feel the pain anymore. That's right. Having said that, I still haven't introduced yourself yet. Lin G introduced with a smile, my name is Lin G. Lin in wood, G in broker. This bookstore was opened by me but business is not doing very well. Can you tell me the name? ? Quote. The girl lowered her eyes and said, no, I don't have a name. The girl thought about when she was in the test tube. 227 is just the number representing the inanimate creature in that glass jar. That's not my name. And Lin G on this side picked up the cotton in the box thinking, doesn't have a name. Does she mean to say goodbye to that sad past, or maybe that she didn't want to reveal her identity? She left the house like a wary cat. I couldn't help but think how that wound had created such a huge darkness in her heart. Quote. Lin G remained silent, looking at the girl and thinking, what a poor, strong and stubborn child. Lin G held the girl's hand with one hand and rubbed her head with the other, saying, let it go, consider everything that happened before as if nothing happened. Lin G bandaged her wound. She formed a bow to advise and say, if you are willing to let go of everything, then the days in the past are nothing more than a series of numbers. There's nothing to worry about. After tying up the wound. After that, Lin G put her hands on her hips and smiled and said to the girl, the most important thing is always the present and the future. The girl looked at the bandaged wound on her hand. Her face turned red. She looked at Lin G and thought, this is an illusion. Feel, his words and his hands are so warm. Lin G picked up the dirty cotton and put it in the box and continued. Next I will help you treat the wound on your back. Turn around and take off your clothes. Take off your jacket. The girl turned her back and replied, okay. She slowly took off her shirt. Lin G's pupils suddenly shrank when he saw the blood on her back that was still bleeding. Looking closely, the wound in the neck is quite deep. Lin G said to the girl, it might be a little painful. Just try to bear with it. Lin G took the tools from the medical instrument tray. He started to disinfect the girl. The cotton was covered in blood. The bandage was also stained with blood. Lin G put it aside. After bandaging her, he said, okay, the wound is not infected. Just need to rest for a while and it will be fine. Completely cured. Lin G placed his hand on the girl's head again and asked, do you want to live the life you want? Do you have any plans in the future? The girl was patted on the head very comfortably and closed her eyes. Then she heard Lin G ask. She opened her eyes. She was silent for a while. She hugged her leg and said, I don't know anymore. I have nowhere to go anymore. Lin G hearing that, he turned his head to look at the girl. There was no doubt that her eyes were filled with confusion and bewilderment. It was obvious that a girl had just gone through a big change in her inner life. Find the correct direction. This is where advisor Mr. Lin's words will come into effect. Psychological manipulation master Lin G continued his career. He bared his teeth and said, for example, if that's the case, you'll need to get a new identity. or I'm lacking an assistant. If you still don't have any plans, then okay, you can stay and help me. At least for this time I will make sure you are safe. Lin G said with a bright smile, until then, if you have any new plans, you can. It's not too late to leave. While the girl sat silently looking at Lin G wondering, bookstore assistant. Lin G explained to the girl, if you are willing to work at the bookstore as an assistant, I can at least guarantee that you will be absolutely safe during this time. If at that time you have a plan, if you have any new plans, it's not too late to leave. The girl hesitated and asked, bookstore assistant. Lin G smiled like psychological manipulation and said, that's right. It's an easy job, isn't it? It's not that difficult. Lin G took a book down from the shelf and smiled in her heart. If I leave everything to her, I can have time to read all these books every day. Lin G held the book and spread her arms as if welcoming a new member. As an assistant, you only have to clean the shelves, maintain and register the books every day. How about it? Isn't it simple? Lin G said. Very normal. Her actions were also very normal. But in the girl's eyes, Lin G's whole body was surrounded by a strange red aura. The girl trembled in fear and thought to herself, just isn't it a very simple job to repair and register? The girl hugged her arms tightly and trembled uncontrollably. Just lying here makes me feel heavy and scary breathing. Then, can you call such a job easy? The girl closes her eyes tightly, even when I close my eyes. That creepy feeling becomes infinitely magnified. That is, when the girl closes her eyes. There are countless mouths flowing blood and bulging eyes looked at the girl. At that moment before my eyes was no longer the dark old bookstore, but this image in the darkness before my eyes. The girl trembled and kept thinking, running endlessly, it's hard to imagine what this bookstore is all about. Instinctively I don't want to stay here another second. The girl's eyes opened and she remembered the blonde man. That blonde man was Andrew. She thought, but if I don't agree, if I think in a good way, I will continue to be chased by the Truth Society. But I know very little about the outside world. Even if I successfully escape, I'm afraid it will be difficult. Survive. The girl thought of another direction. Worse yet, if I refuse his offer, I will have a hard time walking out the door. Let's consider it a bit. Both sides are equally dangerous. Not much difference, right? The girl fell into deep contemplation. At first it was just a small tangle. Now it is countless big tangles. The girl was extremely confused. Her whole body wanted to smoke. This proof shows that her brain is overloaded. As for Lin G, looking at the confused girl, he himself also gave 3 points and thought to himself, this child's small head can think about everything. But it doesn't seem very smart. Right? So Lin G put his hand on the girl's head and rubbed it. Then withdrew his hand and said, if you don't like it, I won't force it. If you have your own thoughts, I will. Don't interfere. Don't worry too much. Lin G knelt on one knee and said, now you don't have to think so much. Let's talk about it again after the wound is treated. Lin G gave her back towards the girl, clapping his hand on her shoulder and smiling, I will continue to take care of you until you recover. At that time you can choose whether to go or stay. The girl silently looked at the photo. Lin G's wide back. She grabbed Lin G's shoulders then slowly crawled back onto his back. She thought, comparing the two, it seems like staying is best. Right, can be provided new identity. New place to live but the price must be paid. At this time, Lin G also hugged the girl's legs to carry her up. He placed his hand on her leg. He carefully avoided her wound and thought, I be careful not to touch this child's wound. Lin G glanced back and said, I don't have a spare room here, so you can sleep on my bed first. And I'll sleep on the chair. Tomorrow I'll go buy a new bed. The girl lying on Lin G's back. Her face was a bit red. With a sound in her heart. The girl was carried step by Lin G. Her heart was confused. She whispered to herself, so close. So hot. I can hear his heartbeat. Lin G walked up the stairs to the door of his room and pushed the door in. But when the girl seeing the situation in the room, her eyes widened. Her eyes widened like chicken eggs. The girl saw the dream net hanging above the bed emitting blue light and asked, what is that? Lin G turned his head in bewilderment. Then he hugged the girl and walked over with a smile. Introducing, beautiful. Right, this is a souvenir that can help you sleep well and have beautiful dreams. Which one of my guests gave it to me? It's called a dream net. I tested it myself. The girl's eyes widened as she looked at the dream net. She asked herself, beautiful dream. Is he referring to the one ominous thing that's giving off an abyssal predator-like aura? The girl thought about the time she was in the test tube and saw something similar. I've seen a fragment of a spider web that looks similar to that thing. It was a dangerous item that was protected by a device consisting of layers of protection. The girl thought about what she saw in the sealed pile. I was told it came from a dream beast called the Abyss Predator. It has the power to weave small dreams and drag people into a dream filled with horrific hallucinations, killing them slowly. The image of the girl seemed to be reflected in that dream net, but looks like it was turned into some sort of magical tool. And who's that customer he was talking about? Quote, the girl seemed to imagine the image of Wild and the giant snake. To be able to make such a poetic prop must be an extremely dangerous existence. Lin G again looking at the Candela sword placed next to him. He introduced, that sword is also a souvenir from another guest. It is a symbol of his family's glory. So it is extremely precious. And in the girl's eyes, the sword emitted a fiery light. A shadowy figure appeared. In her heart she thought, even though the ether energy wrapped around this sword is much stronger than that net, the light, the silver around it is much more dangerous and scary. It seems like there is an absolutely powerful goblin inside this sword, which can at any time behead uninvited guests. The girl was trembling all the time. At first glance, it seems like he arranged for me to stay in my own bedroom. But this is actually a blatant warning. Right? The girl was laid down on the bed, her eyes closed tightly in fear. Lin G saw her situation like that and thought to himself, why is this child even more scared after hearing my explanation? Maybe it's because he's afraid of the new environment. Afraid of this kindness. What a pitiful child. Lin G opened the closet and smiled and said, don't worry, it won't be here. No one will hurt you. If you feel scared, just call me. Lin G took out a set of clothes and placed them on the girl's body, saying, for now, I only have a few spare clothes. But they are very clean. Okay, first, you just change and rest. The girl took off her shirt to change clothes and thought, is there really no one here? The girl inhaled the scent on her shirt and thought, I just need to consider the man in front of me as a human being. After changing, the girl turned around and asked Lin G, human, what's your temperature? Are normal people this tall? Lin G heard that as he silently praised in his heart, so good. He placed his hand on the girl's forehead to check her body temperature. He smiled and said, your body is too cold. It's a sign that you've lost too much blood. The girl was a bit confused. Lin G told her, remember to cover yourself with a blanket when you go to bed at night. The girl pulled her legs up to cover herself while Lin G looked at her. The Candela sword on the table thinking, I will put this sword away so the child won't be scared. Lin G raised his voice and said to the girl, now only my things are left. So now you can use them. Quote, before leaving, Lin G looked at the girl covering herself on the bed and said, that's right, since you don't have a name. Can I give you a new name? Do you have any ideas? If not, I will choose a name for you. The girl covered her mouth with a blanket and replied, Hearing that, Lin G's eyes flashed slightly. He looked at the moon outside the door and whispered, I'll think about it. While the girl was watching with wide eyes, he heard Lin G ask, Moon, what do you think? Quote, the girl's eyes opened wider. Lin G decided, from today your name will be Moon. Lin G closed the door. The dirty bloody shirt was hung on one side. Lin G he looked out the door with his hand in his pocket and thought. Overall, there weren't any traces left behind. This kid ran away decisively and fluently, without any movement from his pursuer. Next, we have to think of a way to escape. Solve the problem of her not having a household registration. Lin G took out her phone and thought. Even though I don't have half of my household registration, for better or worse I have experience with this. I can ask the previous customer to fake my identity. This is the communication device that the first customer gave me when I first came to Nuojin and opened the bookstore. Lin G remembered a certain girl whose books I introduced to her. It was because of her help that this bookstore was able to qualify for official business. Lin G smiled. This is the reward for me enlightening and introducing her to a book. Even though at that time I was just rambling and suggesting to her. Lin G smiled brightly, but based on her attitude it seemed like that conversation changed her life. That's why she thought of me as the savior of her life. This is a bit exaggerated, isn't it? Lin G clicked on the caller's name on the contact list. I remember at that time she said this phone number would be available 24 hours a day. Whenever I needed help, I just needed to dial this number and I will definitely receive a response from this communication device. Lin G stood in the middle of her house and thought. Because I don't need help with anything. I haven't called this number for 3 years. And I think the fake household registration she helped me with that time was more than enough to repay that favor. But since I now have a new employee, I have to make sure that she can live here without worried about anything. The phone beeped. Someone on the other end of the phone said, "Hello Sir Lin. The moon hangs high above the canal of a large villa located on the grounds of a room emitting light. Through the window a girl, wearing a maid outfit with a white hairpin, can be seen sitting on the chair doing her work. At this time a sound came from her plump chest. The girl stopped writing and was startled. She looked down at the cleavage of her chest. It was her phone kept in there. Her purple eyes flashed behind the glass. The girl stood up and took out her phone. Her pink lips lost the phone. "Hello Sir Lin. Lin G is also on this side, hello." Lin G was a bit confused and thought, this is not Kiri's voice. Even though on the phone she seemed like a plump and serious woman. Her voice was, "This girl is so special. I think I've heard of it before." Lin G went back to her memory, thinking back to the time when the bookstore here was a bit shabby. The girl hugged his arm. A girl with big breasts came to pick up that girl Kiri. Lin G seemed to remember him asking, "Are you the maid who brought Kiri back that time?" The girl over here was wearing big glasses replied with a smile, "Yes. You can call me Bella." Bella smiled and said, "It's an honor to be remembered by you. I thought you must have forgotten about an unknown character like me." Quote. Lin G on this side with a sweaty face waved her hand and smiled. "No way. Why do you think like that? How could I not remember you? I really didn't expect this phone number to come out after 3 years can pick up the phone so quickly." Bella looked out the window and said, "According to the master's instructions. I always keep the phone with me for 3 years to wait for your call at any time. Sir, do you need me to wake you up?" "Master?" Lin G over here used a cloth to wipe the blood off the chair and replied, "No. There's no need, just let her sleep." He thought to himself, it's hard to scrub the blood off this recliner, okay? Forget it, this recliner is old, covering the black blood stains it probably won't be very clear. Bella on the other side said, "Okay, when the owner comes back I will pass the phone back to you. Hey. Do you have any instructions? According to the agreement, any request from you will become our top target." Lin G's head was sweaty again. Thinking, still, is that so exaggerated? He had a voice that said, "It's not about ordering, it's that I have something to ask. I hope you can help." Lin G propped her hands on the chair and said, "For now I saved a little girl of unknown origin." Moon was lying on the bed and was falling asleep. Lin G said, "Well, you guys can investigate the fire in the area from 20th Street to 50th Street. I want to ask you guys to give that girl a new identity to disguise herself." Moon was sleeping soundly without knowing anything. Lin G put the phone next to her ear and heard the other person say, "Please wait a little. I understand, but this is a little complicated and I might make you wait a few more days. I hope you understand." And Lin G over here holding the broom is very proud of her cleaning skills. He was still listening to the person on the other side say, "At that time, we will send specialized personnel to the place to serve the day to ensure that no errors occur." Lin G answered yes. "Then the trouble is for you." Lin G on this side flashed slightly red eyes and said, "Listening to that familiar voice of yours. It seems like in the past 3 years. You haven't changed at all. Right?" Quote. Bella wears high heels, for you. Nothing has really changed. Bella looks outside the window, but these 3 years have been an incredible change for us. Heaven and earth. Of course one thing is that my appreciation and admiration for you will never change. Bella said, "Master still misses you very much and hopes to hear from you one day. I'll teach you again. It's just that you haven't contacted us yet, so Master doesn't dare to proactively make such a request to you." The maid's purple pupils flashed. If you don't mind, I can arrange another meeting on behalf of the owner. I hope I can get your permission." Lin G's face is on this side. The smile reflected in the mirror, "Of course, maybe. I always welcome you to come to the bookstore at any time like 3 years ago, so I'm looking forward to seeing Kiri again 3 years later." The phone rang and turned off. Lin G looked at the phone. He breathed a sigh of relief and thought, After we finished talking, I don't understand why I feel guilty in my heart. Lin G was extremely confused. He looked at the phone thoughtfully. I obviously don't want to cause trouble, causing more trouble for the other person. But how does it become that we are betraying their wishes and expectations? How come there are people who always expect others to bring trouble to them? Lin G fell into the chaos he created. He brainstormed, then finally gave up and sighed. If you can't think of it, just leave. Lin G remembered that time when Bella and her little mistress Kiri bowed their heads low to say goodbye to him. He quickly waved his hand. Not that bad. Not that bad. Lin G thought back to that time. Thought, maybe it's because they are businessmen, so promises and gratitude are important to them. Before, it was such an ostentatious attitude. Unexpectedly, 3 years later, it still hasn't changed at all. It even seems like it's even worse. Lin G yawned. All the time we're talking and not paying attention. Why is it already past midnight? It's almost dawn. I'll go out and buy a bed and then go back to sleep for a while. Quote. At this time the voice of the TV came from the neighbor's uncle's house. Good morning. This is Noken Radio. Here is the morning news. Due to recent continuous gas explosions in shopping centers in the area near 52nd Street is temporarily closed. Sorry for the inconvenience in this activity. Lin G's hand on the door handle stopped. Lin G sighed. Okay, on this point there's no one else. Lin G walked upstairs. His fingers snapped as if he had an idea. Lin G thought as he walked. That reminds me that this girl named Kiri was extremely devoted from the beginning. Worshipping me at such an immature age. Excessive worship or deification of an imperfect person is not a good thing. Lin G walked as if there was smoke swirling around him. He walked to a room with stairs. Next time she comes we have to confide in her. Lin G walked into a room filled with tools. Thought, now then. Lin G opened a trunk. I have to feed myself. Lin G took out the saw that had been kept in the cupboard. Lin G bulb light falling down in the bookstore. Outside the bookstore a black shadow with 2 red eyes was staring at the light. The lights covered the door. A house door opened to a stream of pink light emitting in the TV amidst the black shadow of a ferocious demon. The fat neighbor Uncle Colin is trembling, holding his legs and sitting in a corner. The fat neighbor uncle groans and says, Mom, help me. The neighbor's uncle's face widened, thinking, I've had enough of this torture. That evil spirit is definitely doing something scary. Colin trembled, as if there was blood flowing out of his leg. I don't like this kind of torture with scary chainsaw sounds. A scene flashed in my mind. In the uncle's mind he imagined Lin G using a cutter to cut some body was splattered with blood. Lin G's face smiled and after turning around, Lin G even laughed. Lin G held 2 chainsaws in her hand and raised her voice. Colin, my neighbor, and under Lin G's feet are countless dead bodies. He's looking at me, right? Lin G smiles like a devil. You can look at him at a glance. Sir, I'm not human. Sir, I won't let you go so easily. Death is your only way out now. Colin imagined that Lin G would then break down the wall, carry 2 saws and rush towards Colin. You should go and die. Colin sitting on this side was scared by his own imagination and shouted. You don't need to come over. Suddenly at this moment Colin woke up startled and sat holding his legs thinking, no. If I scream and be heard it will become a massacre. Please someone come and save me. At this moment the phone rang. The phone on Colin's desk made a sound. Colin quickly rushed to his phone. Oh good, I have news. Only to see a long text message on Colin's phone. Listen to me, Moon. The moon will make you peaceful and serene. Your prayers have been accepted by the Dome Church. We will go investigate in the meantime. Please don't act rashly. If you find out otherwise please follow the following method of mixing holy water. Spray alcohol into the 4 corners of the house and the door every day while praying the corresponding mantra. Soak 5 grams of moon ants, 3 grams of yin-yang flowers, 1 gram of holy water, pearls, 0.1 grams of fine salt, 0.02 grams of silver needles, 500 milliliters of water. Mix well and squeeze to get the juice. Encrypted spell. Signed Vincent. Bella on this side walks step by step up the stairs with both hands placed in front of her stomach. She stood seriously in front of a large door. Bella raised her hand and knocked on the door. The sound of knocking rang out. Inside the room, someone spoke. Bella, come in here. Bella received the command to open the door. Behind the door there is a purple protective film. The other protective film displays the words, "The protective film is starting to analyze the identity. Bella is allowed in." Bella's back fell to the ground. On the bed filled with pillows. The owner of the bed could not be seen clearly. A strand of silver hair peeked out from the pillow cover. The person lying in the pile of pillows groaned softly. Bella bowed her head 90 degrees to the person lying on the bed and asked, "Did you sleep well last night?" "My master." A pair of legs with honey skin protruded from the bed. The other person opened his mouth and yawned. 1 hour. A girl with honey skin wearing a white halter top with short silver hair. The girl raised her voice still snoring and asked, "What time is it now?" "Bella, is there something so important that you woke me up?" This person is Kiri Chapman, Lin G's first guest. Bella looked at her mistress and replied, "Forgive me to speak frankly, master. You must always maintain an elegant appearance. You are already over 100 years old." Kiri unhappily kicked the pillow on his bed and shouted, "So loud I want to die. So loud I want to die. So loud I want to die. No matter how many 100 years old I am, if you're sleepy, you still have to sleep. If there's something wrong, hurry up and say it. I still have to go to sleep." Bella reported saying, "I'm afraid you can't sleep today." Bella took out the phone from her chest. Bella handed the phone over. Talking to Kiri, "I want to inform you that Mr. Lin just called." The pillow fell to the ground. Kiri asked again, "What did you just say?" Bella's purple pupils clearly saw her mistress's bewildered eyes. Kiri spoke, "He. Kiri's face turned red. Her eyes flashed in the shape of a heart. She covered her mouth and said, "Proactively contact me." Me. Kiri happily picked up the phone and lay down on the bed. You could see the passionate hearts flying everywhere. Kiri looked at the phone happily endlessly while Bella silently repeated the two words, "Elegant." Looking at Kiri, Bella's legs that were constantly waving, she continued saying, "Majesty." Then Bella saw Kiri holding a pillow continuously calling his name, "Mr. Lin. Mr. Lin." Bella gave up thinking, "Forget it. Go." Bella was hit on the head by a thrown pillow and thought to herself, "Forgive me frankly. Looking at you right now, you are no different from a child just learning to love for the first time when the person he likes takes the initiative to call. No, what kind of appearance should a person in power have?" But as a professional maid, Bella did not say these words. Bella stood silently looking at the pillows continuously falling to the ground without responding. Bella took the pillow off her head. At this time, Kiri got up from the pillow, wearing a slightly red face. Kiri was holding a doll that looked like Lin G with a black face and asked, "What did he say to you?" Bella called out to, "Master." Bella coughed lightly and replied, "He wants us to forge the identity of a girl he just rescued. Based on my investigation and the information he found. This girl is likely related to the Dream Beast invasion that happened not long ago in Noken and the attack on the reincarnation machine of the Truth Association." Hand holding a shaped pillow the other Lin G held. Bella was still saying, knowing the specific situation. You can only know after sending someone to investigate. But Bella said she didn't see her master answer. So she was a bit silent and called out, "Master." Kiri's face on this side was completely black and isolated. "Girl." "What?" Bella heard that. Her head was full of question marks, thinking, "It seems like your focus is a bit wrong." And Kiri on this side hugged the Lin G-shaped pillow tightly, whispering and repeating, "The fox spirit. The fox spirit has no shame." Kiri's whole body hugged the teddy bear full of black shadows. Bella pushed her glasses and thought, "If I let him think too much, I'm afraid something will happen. It's best to quickly get back to the main topic." At this point, Bella said, "I hope you'll forgive me for what I did earlier. I'm willing to make a request on your behalf. I'll go to Boss Lin's bookstore in a few days." These words entered Kiri's ears, causing Kiri's ears to turn red. Kiri made a strange sound. Her face turned red and her eyes turned red. Round. Kiri quickly ran back and pulled Bella's skirt and shouted, "You! How could you make such a decision on your own? I wasn't ready yet. You've gone too far this time. It's time. You remember this too rudely." Bella stood still and let Kiri shake as much as she wanted. And after shaking, Kiri didn't scream anymore. Now Kiri shyly asked Bella, "So does he agree?" Bella heard that and smiled and replied, "He said he agreed and is always welcome at any time." Kiri's heart felt like an arrow of love struck at first sight. Kiri fell down on the bed again. Happiness. Kiri lay on the bed breathing heavily, saying, "Mr. Lin's request must be completed very well. Please bring all the documents about what happened at Nokia in the past few days and hand it over for me. I will quickly arrange a time to meet Mr. Lin. Kiri's eyes glanced slightly in reminder. In addition, Congreve has recently become close to the wizard. Bella bowed her head and replied, yes, I will send someone to investigate. If you investigate this matter, as one of the 3 presidents of the Ash Chamber of Commerce, I will not dare to do anything rude. In behind her was a symbol surrounded by leaves and in the middle was a large tree branch. Bella said, you don't need to worry too much about this little trick of his. No matter what, it can't infect someone's status. Inherit your family. The Chapman family believes in nature. This is one of the oldest druid families and the largest shareholder of the Ash Merchant Guild. But now the heir, the most competitive member of the family for a long time, is the half-breed of a druid and a dark night spirit. Kiri Chapman. No one knows how she spent 3 short years working from a half-blood. Outside of the beast, she became someone who held countless powers and was admired by her fans. Her lips and exposed white teeth were raising her voice as if she were talking. Countless black and red threads were flying around. Many people said that she had the power to communicate verbally and control human souls. So with fear and respect people call her Chapman Witch. Bella's eyes narrowed and she remembered the story from many years ago. Yes, all of this originates from that day 3 years ago. Old memories flashed in her eyes. That day Kiri quickly ran and hugged her figure. Bella at that time was extremely curious and turned her head to look at the ruined bookstore behind her. There was a figure looking at them. I don't understand why the owner's eyes were filled with shining stars when looking at that man. But now that I think about it, I can't help but tremble at the strength and fear of a seemingly ordinary man. At that time, behind the ruined door, Bella saw Lin G's smile and flashing red eyes. The more she thought, the more she felt the trembling emanating from her soul. Kiri raised her hands. I went up to look. She sat on the bed and hugged her legs and said, be careful in the near future. These are the words that Day Lin told me. I have to handle this matter well, then I can come see Day Lin. Kiri's eyes and voice were full of nostalgia. It's been 3 years, Bella. It's been 3 years since I was born. Bella's hand holding the phone showed the words Sir Lin. Bella smiled and thought, to be able to make a person like you who doesn't care about the world care like that. The bookstore owner is truly a capable person. Bella's eyes closed and there was a mole above her eyes. So she thought, that said, the owner is probably starting to plan some great plan right now. A certain master threw the saw on the ground and said with a sigh of relief, phew, it's finally done. Lin G looked at the bed frame that he had just built with countless pieces of wood assembled and thought to himself. With just half the darkness, I was able to make a finished product of this level. It's truly shameful of me. Even though I look at it from the outside, it doesn't look very nice. But after all, it's a bed, just need to sleep, only to see the bed frame arranged with messy wooden logs. Lin G stood with her back to the door and thought, I have to clean up this mess. At this moment there was a figure staring at Lin G. From behind him a voice asked, do you still have any help? Lin G was quite startled and turned her head to see Moon standing there staring at her. Moon stood outside the door and looked inside, asking Lin G, do you need any help? Lin G looked at Moon and asked, can you moon your body? Lin G has a map in her heart that says, even though that girl's job is a work-sharing assistant, right now this little assistant's endurance seems a bit low. If something bad happens, the things that need to be cleaned up aren't just the broken pieces of wood. Lin G's mind raced with thoughts, and Moon looked at Lin G with question marks all over her head. She smiled, bared her teeth, put her hand on her chin in thought. Then she clapped her hand hard. Realizing the problem, she pulled up her sleeve and patted the mouse on her arm with a serious face, meaning to prove to Lin G that her strength is extremely strong. Lin G put her hand on her mouth and smiled because of this cuteness. He thought to himself, this girl wants to show her strength too. Do you see that? The problem is that this small, slim arm, along with the bandage that I personally tied, looks pathetic. Lin G held Moon's hand and thought, it's okay, if this kid has a heart. I can't help you, just be careful and you'll be fine. Lin G took Moon's hand and walked into the room and said, let's clean up the debris on the floor. Broom, dust collector and bag, the trash cans are all here. Lin G raised a finger to instruct. Be careful when sweeping first or else. Moon looked at Lin G and continued, you'll break everything. Lin G closed her eyes and her head was a mess. He said, I believe you won't do that. Even though I didn't mean it. I still had to say it. Lin G put her hand on her head. Moon said, I mean, be careful not to let your wound get worse. No matter what happens, you have to put yourself first. Okay, two silhouettes, one tall and one short, stood in harmony. Finally, Lin G put her hand on the girl's head and smiled and said, if the broom is broken, there are thousands of others to replace it, but you only have one. Moon heard this and her eyes lowered slightly. One language. Her eyes seemed to recall her own memories. Thinking, it's not like this. According to those researchers, artificial humans like me can be mass-produced. There is nothing unique, but maybe I'm different from him. Moon's face turned slightly red and she placed her hand on her chest thinking, I don't know how to describe this feeling. But it seems like I received the temperature I felt on his back at that time. Moon clutched her shirt, the warmth of humanity. Lin G lifted the bed she had just finished and said with a smile. Next, you just need to clean this place and the bookstore lobby and I'll move this bed to the front floor. Moon was holding a broom in the back. Hearing this, raised her hands and said, I can. Lin G raised her hand to refuse, no need. Just let me do it. Moon looked at Lin G hugging the bed and thought, is this a bed? Lin G hugged the bed and left. Moon stood behind him holding a broom, looking at Lin G's back and thinking, what a strange man. The aura is so terrifying. But at times like this he really looks human. Normal, just like my initial guess. Moon's face was covered in sweat again, but now I absolutely will not believe in those kinds of illusions again. Moon's footsteps walked a few steps later. She peeked her head out the door, tears slightly moving her eyes. Thinking, in the future I will have to continue to face these ghostly bookshelves. Only to see in the Moon's eyes that the bookshelf was covered. Surrounded by monsters with strange black shapes, this hair-splitting feeling really makes people uncomfortable. I have nothing else to do but get used to it as soon as possible. Moon held two brooms and said in her heart, I remember the people in the lab used these cleaning tools. At this time Lin G's voice came out again, oh right Moon. Lin G stood on the bridge. Thang looked at the Moon, if you have decided to become an assistant at the bookstore. You can call me boss or manager from now on. Moon heard that with a strong voice and called out, boss. Lin G's words made the dark shadows that were trying to scare Moon back. Lin G then added, that reminds me because you are just an assistant. So I won't get paid. Moon didn't understand, so she stood there thinking. Then she breathed heavily, her eyes bright as stars. Cheering herself up in her heart, let's cheer up. Moon raised two brooms high and shouted, stay alert and work hard. Let's clean up Boss Lin's bookstore. The monster statue and the rose looked at it and asked questions. Next to it, hey, in the room. Lin G just entered the room. His eyes were a bit surprised when he saw something, only to see that the pillows and blankets in the room were arranged very neatly and the whole room was cleaned up. Lin G couldn't help but smiled and thought, what a good girl. The next few days will be very happy. Lin G went downstairs again to look at the girl who was cleaning. Then he instructed Moon to clean. Lin G sat on the ladder again. Moon stood below and lifted the book for him. Lin G was in the bathroom, showing off her muscular muscles. Lin G sewed more clothes for Moon, with very strange colors, a blue shirt and a red skirt. Moon looked confused. Lin G hung an open door sign outside. So out of breath, he shouted, what a beautiful day. Moon behind also raised his hands to cheer. Lin G said, Moon, wake up quickly and prepare to welcome new guests. The tea was steaming. It was already 3 p.m. Lin G sat down to drink tea and consoled herself, saying, it feels like there are no guests coming today. Right, don't mind the Moon. This is what happens. Out like every other day at the store. Moon squinted her eyes and remained silent. At this time Lin G was drinking a cup of tea and looked at her and said, that's right. He reached out and pulled out the cupboard in the table and took out a notebook. Say, this is the book to record customer information at the bookstore. In the future, you will have to record customer information along with the time along with the title of the book to lend. Look at this first to get used to it. Moon was a little confused and reached out her hand to take the notebook. Not knowing what Moon saw in the file, but her face was covered in sweat and she had 3 dots. The girl's face was officially gray. Lin G still didn't understand anything. He smiled and asked the Moon, what's wrong? If there's any problem, Just ask. Lin G's face is now smiling. At this moment, Lin G is gently preparing instructing the children. He still did not realize the seriousness of the problem. 2,000 years later, Lin G sat in a chair depressed, holding her head full of tangles. Moon sat next to her with her eyes lowered silently. Lin G thought to herself, why, things are gradually becoming more complicated. Lin G's face seemed to have lost its vitality. His eyes widened and he could no longer see his irises. He thought, only after going through a series of conversations did he say chicken and duck. I just realized that this girl doesn't have any awareness at all. The awareness that she has now is all from seeing the lack of basic education from others. Lin G seemed to have lost her awareness. The most troublesome problem is that the girl is not yet literate but can understand advanced philosophical and mathematical knowledge. In the end, what kind of environment did this girl live in before? Such a headache. In the end, how can we do this? And Moon was behind her, holding the file a little worried. Moon said, Boss, I can learn. Lin G turned her head and smiled. It's not okay. I made this girl feel insecure. It's a shame to be such a teacher. At times like this, I have to comfort her first. Lin G said. G smiled. It's good that you want to learn. You're smart, so it won't be long before you can read these things. Lin G pulled out his chair and stood up. He said, For now, I'm not in a hurry to wait for you to finish studying. Just in time to recover from your injury. When that happens, it won't be too late to come help me. Lin G was on the bookshelf, picking up a book. Moon looked at it in the back and looked puzzled. Lin G said, That's great. I have 2 books that are suitable for you. Lin G's eyes flashed. He put the book in Moon's hand and said, Please read first, then confirm and add to what you have learned before. And if you don't understand anything, just ask me again. And Moon looked at the covers of the other 2 books and looked like was struck by lightning. Only seeing the other 2 books with 2 covers with countless eyes and teeth. The mood was confused and then the girl fell into some space. The Moon, full of wonder inside her, stepped on the ground. The ground was white. The Moon's eyes widened when she saw the image before her eyes. A giant monster with 2 red eyes was staring at her. The truth here was a foot door. The girl walked lightly, and Lin G on this side felt like she was struck by lightning. Even her angel wings cracked. Blood flowed out. I didn't know small actions like this could cause damage. For me like that. Lin G held 2 books to cheer herself up. Isn't it wrong to take it? I don't know if this book is suitable for that girl. I see. It seems like this label for children has hurt her self-esteem. Lin G coughed lightly and thought, these at a time like this. We should be a little more gentle so that the children can realize the truth that learning is endless. Lin G spoke up, his face staring at her, eyes flashing red, but in Moon's eyes. Lin G spoke like a monster in a deep voice. Do everything slowly. Don't be hasty. Don't criticize these 2 elementary books. They are the foundation. Understand? Moon was startled, trembling, clutching her body, her eyes filled with tears. Lin G looked at Moon. You still have a lot to learn in the future. Moon stood silently, not daring to move. Her mouth opened wide and she let out a sound. Moon stared at the 2 books in Lin G's hand. Then she looked at Lin G standing holding the books like a devil, smiling and thinking, although this is not as scary as looking at the entire bookshelf. But it seemed to attract me, motivating me to open it and learn about it. In her eyes, she clearly saw the 2 books and thought, but this kind of feeling is enough to make people wonder. Worried, she hugged her own hand in fear and trembled, but it did not stop her thoughts, which means that these 2 books have the ability to influence the mind and consciousness of a people by placing him there. This is also a book that teaches common sense. Moon took gentle steps towards Lin G. And Lin G waited silently. Lin G tapped on the 2 books and said, No matter what you do, don't hate these 2 books. These are basic books. You know. Lin G crossed her arms and held the book, her face looking at her from above and below as if threatening. Even if later, you still have to learn. Moon heard it, as if an electric spark had struck her body. Ask yourself in your heart. Is it basic but still need to be learned? This book even my instincts are unconsciously resisting. Is it basic knowledge? It feels like the weak perception I have okay when the laboratory is about to collapse. Moon trembled. Looking up from below you could see her round butt exposed and said, I don't hate that. But in her heart she thought, but her charisma and his charisma is very confident. Moon's cheeks turned red. Is this basic knowledge? Lin G's face was in the darkness, looking at the moon slowly. Moon also silently faced Lin G. Then Moon held out her hands and waited for Lin G to give her the books. Moon took the 2 books in her hands and looked at them. Book. Her eyes turned black. Lin G smiled with satisfaction, baring all her teeth. That's right. Lin G's figure looked like a fierce teacher. Remember is to never resist learning. Although it is a bit painful, but it is very useful. It is the endless ladder of progress that we can easily grasp in our hands. Lin G put her hand above the moon's head, said, at the same time. There is no need to use an arrogant attitude to look at it. The silhouette of 2 people fell to the floor. Lin G said the truth to the moon. A house only needs a roof enough. But it also needs a solid foundation. And the bricks are stacked in layers. Only then can we finally build a complete and sturdy house. Lin G opens the lid of the teacup, revealed Lin G's silhouette reflected in the teacup. This room is where you face all the difficulties in the future. Lin G slammed the lid of the teacup and said, it is a fortress. Within our hearts. He smiled. The things you can never lose in the future will be the biggest solid support for you. Besides, these things are just things outside the body. There is nothing, only wisdom. Only your wisdom can make you always feel confident when you fail and alert when you succeed. Lin G raised her voice, revealing her white teeth. Her voice was deep. Remember well that the things that what you get through effort is not worthless. Your current efforts are to serve your own future. At some point you will have more choices. That's it. Is your true strength. Moon looked at Lin G silently without answering. Lin G thought in her heart, these words are not ordinary advice but rather the enlightenment and belief of Mr. Lin for me. Lin G recalls the act of making the bed and then the act of building the bookstore herself. The difficulties I encountered were nothing compared to others. But I overcame them. Through it all, up to now, the bookstore business has gradually come into order. Not only thanks to this mouth but also thanks to the rich skills and knowledge that we acquired before. Couple Lin G's hand clenched in contentment. Thinking, knowledge will change destiny. Great people never lie to me. While Moon on this side held up the book and said, oh, with a vague look on her face. Moon's lips pursed. She held the book and looked at Lin G and said, no matter what. I will study hard. Lin G heard that as if he had communicated with the girl and then he reached out and caressed her. No smiled and said, not bad children, easy to teach. You don't need to worry about not being able to handle it yourself. Lin G remembered the little girl Melissa who bought a bunch of exercise books. He proudly advertised, said, last time. A little girl who was passionate about learning, compared to people of similar age, came to my place to buy books to study and the results were extremely good. The things they get here are even more sublime. Much more than what you're holding. So you don't need to worry. Moon asked as if she had grown cat ears and a tail. Is that so? And the studious guest Melissa are now lying sick in bed but still muttering, studying. Lin G put her hand on Moon's shoulder and smiled. Anyway, I'll tell you. Lin G leaned closer to Moon and said, as my assistant, you can read the books here as you please. For free. This is an opportunity that so many people dream of. Don't even dare to think about it. Do you understand? Moon was so scared that she was sweating. Hearing Lin G say, you are the golden tree picked out my money. Lin G finished speaking and thought to herself, my throat is a bit dry. I need to drink some water to speak. Lin G reached out to grab the cup of tea on the table. You understand everything. Shall I say? Moon replied, I understand everything the boss said. But you want me to start studying and help you as soon as possible. Moon said her eyes were dizzy. And Lin G smiled and complimented. Good. Go read a book. Lin G, who was drinking tea, thought, even though it's not really good. It's enlightening. It's a good thing for my employees. I don't have any opinions. The silhouette of 2 people fell to the ground. Lin G said, there won't be any customers in the last 2 days. You should bring the book first. After reading this version first. I will check you at any time. So don't be lazy. Moon loudly shouted, clear. Boss. Moon reached out and pushed the chair next to him to sit down. Lin G also sat in the chair next to her, drinking tea from a cup of tea emitting steaming smoke. Lin G looked at Moon diligently reading a book with a smile on her face. Moon over here turned the pages of the book to read the flowing hourglass. The first day, the hourglass ran out. The second day something broke. The third day the ground turned white, a pair of feet with black aura walked. The moon is now in a space, something magical. She was wearing a seductive black dress and her hair was tied with a blue flower. Her blue eyes flashed countless things. The learning mission begins. The moon seems to be standing in the space of the rectangle's memory palace for the first launch zone. Here there are only two colors, white and black, an extremely vast and endless space right in front of the moon. The houses are as green as the city of Noken. And there are shelves full of books in the house. Moon looked at the whole outline once and thought to herself, this method certainly makes studying much easier. Build a memory palace in your mind. Classify and store knowledge that is too diverse, leaving only the already acquired knowledge to make it your own. When you need to learn new knowledge, can be taken directly from the palace's memories. Wherever Moon walked, there seemed to be books under her feet, as if she was searching for knowledge in her mind. Moon thought, the boss really said that's right. The knowledge in the general knowledge test is indeed the basic foundation. But the breadth of this foundation is too large. Its scope includes most of the basic knowledge, cognitive skills, and basic skills, human and non-human abilities. Moon analyzed, non-human includes animals, plants and superhuman beings. Moon walked away thinking, so much wider. I can only say no, tiger is the boss. The rich knowledge he has can only be described in a tragic word. If he is not an artificial person, perhaps it is because he is just a blank page. I am afraid that perception and my sanity will be overwhelmed by the huge and chaotic flow of knowledge. After I finish reading the content of this book, Moon raises her hand and tilts her head to look, and then it will be reshaped into some existence that I don't even know what it is. That's because I knew I could predict it up to this point. So the boss could safely hand over such a dangerous book to me. In midair there was a chain connecting a book created, but a rune-based book is different. It is a detailed record of the entire origin of white mages' spellcasting. That giant book appeared right in front of Moon's eyes. Dark mages are people who use language as their power, and white mages are people who use writing as their power. Corresponding to that, dark mages' spells are still valid. The veins belong to white mages. Moon raised her hand and slowly opened the book in the sea of consciousness. However, if you want to promote the power of white mages, runes alone are not enough. The girl's eyes flashed. Knowledge is important to know. How to mix and combine spells to use. Moon sat looking at Lin G standing next to the blackboard, but the boss's test will definitely also be in this content. Lin G, the man in the bachelor's suit, pointed to the blackboard and said to the girl sitting below, "Hey Moon, look at the blackboard. Master Lin's literacy class has started." Lin G coughed and thought, it's been a long time since I taught students. Even though I was originally a university lecturer and now working as a literacy teacher for students. It's a bit redundant, but I can still fulfill my passion of being a teacher. That's okay. Lin G pointed to a letter on the blackboard and asked, what does this word mean? Moon raised her hand and said confidently, light and fire burning. Lin G had just finished pointing when Moon knew he was extremely bewildered. He silently wondered in his heart, why did this girl's IQ suddenly skyrocket? In just 3 days she could go from is it possible for an elementary school student to become a high school student? It seems like there's something wrong. But if I say it out loud, will that girl think I have a problem with my mind? Lin G thought of a bunch of words in her head, then pointed to the blackboard and asked, cough cough. What about this word? Moon very confidently answered, Loi Ting Chi Quan. Lin G pointed to another word. Hey, the origin of all things. Lin G let out a sigh of relief and took off his bachelor's suit and thought, okay, if this continues, I won't have anything to teach anymore. Lin G was like an old father wiping tears from the corner of his eyes and said, classmate Moon, you've studied well. It seems like you've grasped all the quintessential knowledge of this book. I can rest assured. I'll give you the task of being a bookstore assistant. Moon took the document and replied, yes. Moon's eyes sparkled and sparkled, thinking, I completely understand why the boss wants me to study. Then, Moon got the answer looking at Lin G's back. He must have seen my fear of the bookshelf and the books on it. If so, then I won't be able to. I can't entertain guests properly. That's why he trained me first to adapt, and at the same time to improve my abilities. While Lin G was here drinking tea and whispering, what passion, leave it. He didn't know Moon's thoughts. Moon determined his answer thinking, yes. Surely that's the case. You're really thoughtful. The sun hung high above. The trees swayed with the wind and birds flew in the sky. In a lecture hall building, a person wearing missing glasses said, "Students, this question is very simple. Who will volunteer to answer this question?" A whole lecture hall full of people was scared and sat still, not daring to move. The person on the blackboard shouted, "If no one raises their hand, I will take attendance." Below this, a blonde girl sat near the end of the table. Her mouth was drooling and her face was red. "Master Lin looks really handsome. He looks serious on the outside but is gentle and warm on the inside. I want to give birth to him so much," said the blue-haired girl. Sitting next to him said, "Don't tell me you deliberately didn't understand. But when time was up, you wanted to take it and pretend to ask the teacher." "Okay," the blue-haired girl said that, but also concluded with another sentence, "But it's true that teacher Lin has charm." The two girls observed Lin G smiling and wearing glasses in the lecture hall, at the age of 21. He has published 5 works and published dozens of theses. He is a doctor and a lecturer at the school, and in 3 years he will most likely become an associate professor. It can be said that he is an ideal model for the next generation to follow. And it is not an exaggeration to say that he is a genius. The blonde-haired girl shouted, "That's it. He's super handsome. Do you want to understand better?" The blue-haired girl with a pale face said, "I don't understand and don't want to understand." The blue-haired girl took out a newspaper and gave it to the blonde-haired girl. "If you are interested in Master Lin, you can read this article. You should know more about it so you don't always have to. I get excited every time I see him." The blonde girl looked at Lin G's face holding a cup of the article and asked excitedly, "What is this?" The blue-haired girl replied, "This is an interview with Master Lin not long ago at the Academy of Journalism and Communication. I used his personal experience as a model and occasionally spoke a little about my thoughts on genius." "My friend," blonde hair excitedly said, "does Master Lin like the type of girl in the sky? So let me immediately choose an outfit to look a bit smart. If I directly have plastic surgery, will it be faster?" The blue-haired girl asked incredulously, "Are you awake?" A cup of hot tea was placed on the table. Lin G sat back in her chair and said, "If I speak my mind, I don't think I'm a genius. After meeting geniuses who go against common sense, they do things for others. Skeptical of life, I don't even think I'm worthy of this title of genius." Lin G wore a pair of glasses and smiled, "In my opinion." Lin G spoke at length to person sitting opposite. "I just have a memory and understanding ability that is superior to other people. Moreover, because of my family background and the extremely powerful guidance of my guru, I rely on small, insignificant advantages. Hey, I've only achieved small achievements at this age." The person sitting opposite could see his slightly shaking hands. The other person was trembling as he sat down to take notes in the document. The other person asked, "So Lin G teacher, I wonder what kind of person the real genius you saw is." Eyes behind the glass. Lin G flashed a cup of tea reflecting Lin G's face, another smile inside, vibrate. "Listen to the so-called genius." Lin G opened her eyes. He was lying down on the bed. The dream net is emitting red and blue light. Moon peeked out from behind the door, poked her head in and called out, "Boss, breakfast is ready." Lin G sat up and smiled. "Ah, good morning Moon. You've worked hard. I'm up now. Here." Lin G's eyes narrowed and thought, "I dreamed about memories that happened in the past. I don't remember how I answered at that time." Lin G looked at the moon wearing a black dress. Extremely beautiful white girl silently thought back to what she heard in her dream. "If you are interested in teacher Lin, you can read this article. Now I can conclude that Moon is a unique genius girl." Lin G sat on the bed with a gray face and smiled at Moon. When she came down, she saw the whole table full of extremely rich food. Lin G was a bit surprised. Moon was still holding a pot of soup in her hand. Hotly she said, "I have improved the cooking method according to the method in the book. Boss, please try it." Lin G tried a piece of meat and ate it in her mouth. Lin G closed her eyes tightly. Physiological tears also flowed out and thought to herself, "Is this like in the legend, the flavor that the mother cooked for the family with love?" Lin G just ate one bite and tears flowed down her eyes, saying, "It's delicious." Moon next to her was bewildered when she saw Lin G crying. Lin G thought, "It's a shame to say this, kid, being able to grow up so well until now is not because my teacher raised me well. It is simply because this student is too smart. Lin G recalled his memories a bit. He saw Moon wearing glasses reading a book. In the past few days I've watched her go from knowing nothing to being completely incompetent at almost everything Chinese and English words. Common. Even the various documents that I used to research Azia's environment and people were also used by her as study materials. Lin G remembered again about her messy bed. On the second night after I captured her, she rearranged the bedboards I had assembled. The bed looked like it had been transformed from a primitive tribe into an ordinary wooden board bed. Lin G thought about her clothes again, the spare clothes that I gave her to wear at that time. She improved little by little into a dress suitable for her body shape, which is the black and white dress she currently wears, and used woven fabrics to make clothes. Lin G still remembers that the shop is almost clean without a speck of dust. She also took advantage of the time I was out shopping to clean up the entire book hall. The efficiency was so great that it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say it was remodeled. I don't even know where she got the tools and materials. Lin G thought while eating. She even learned nearly 300 recipes at home without a teacher. Lin G thought while eating, I really don't know how I can't do that. I just gave her the encyclopedia. Lin G was extremely confused. Her speed in learning different skills can be said to be a sponge absorbing water in the true sense of the word. It's black. She's like a mischievous humanoid sponge. So scary. Lin G imagines the girl is a big tree and she herself is a worm. Arrange this situation. Moon can be considered the breadwinner to support the family with his own strength. The previous relationship developing like this is not right. Shouldn't it be a plot where the boss collects employees to develop? Why does it feel like I'm being taken care of? Lin G hugged her full stomach and walked down the stairs thinking. No, like this. Where's the majesty of a boss and another parent? If a daughter is too outstanding, her parents will also feel pressured. Now I understand this feeling. Quickly reflect on what special skills I have that I can use to make that girl admire her. Okay. And the girl who was praised in Lin G's heart was holding a flower vase and fearfully watering the rose plant. Lin G put her hand on the stair railing and asked, "What's wrong?" Moon's whole body trembled and she turned her head to look at Lin G and said, "Boss, I'm sorry. It seems I'm not very good at taking care of plants." Lin G heard that. 3 words, "not good," appeared in his mind. Lin G smiled devilishly. Hey. It's okay. Everyone has things that they're not good at normally. I really don't dare to hide it. In fact, I'm very confident in taking care of flowers. And the tree. Lin G hurriedly went down the stairs. He thought, this child finally has something he can't do. As a parent, I'm not so quick to brag. Wait a minute. How long? Thinking like that, Lin G's face showed a bright smile. Holding a flower pot full of eyes and a mouth like a flower that eats pears. Lin G raised it up and said to the moon, "Let me go with you. Let's discuss a bit. Classmate Moon, this is the rose that I personally raised. It is also the work I am most proud of. Look at these leaves, these flowers, and these bright colors." Lin G smiled and his eyes flashed with red light. He was introducing a man-eating flower in the moon's eyes. This can be said to be a beautiful and noble red rose that is extremely suitable for your taste. What is my beauty like? Is it beautiful? In Moon's eyes, that flower was as scary as a devil. She trembled and praised, "It's very beautiful." Lin G smiled and asked, "Is that right?" He coughed and asked, "Besides the word beautiful, do you have any other words to describe your feelings about it?" Moon immediately raised a like finger towards Lin G. "You're awesome." Lin G smiled brightly when she was complimented. "It's too much praise. This is just an amateur hobby. Anyway, if you follow me, you will learn many more things. Understand?" Moon replied, "Yes sir." Water was watered for the rose plant. Lin G hummed the song and thought to herself, life finally feels a little more real. No matter how good she is. The truth is she still is a child. I also have the responsibility to become a trustworthy adult to guide and help this girl grow. Lin G glanced at Moon who was cleaning the monster statue. It seems like a child. This little Moon admires and praises me more and more deeply. As expected of Master Lin. All of his lectures are so interesting. Everything is so natural. Maybe I don't need to be too obsessed. Photo of this girl's genius. The two of them, one watering the flowers and the other cleaning the table. Lin G's thoughts flew far away. The world is so big. The possibilities are endless. Having an assistant to keep you company, that's a good thing. Isn't it? This is much more believable than that nonsense universal wishing machine. The rose has a leaf that withers and falls off. But this mood of the boss Lin didn't last long either. 2 days later, the rose plant that Lin G boasted about being talented at growing died. Lin G's face was covered in sweat. 3 dots. The moon glanced at Lin G, also 3 dots. Lin G looked at the dead rose and consoled herself. That's not right. How is that possible? Even though I said before, whatever I took care of, it died. But wasn't this flower still fresh 2 days ago? If you're like that, where would Master Lin hide his face? Lin G rushed towards her bookshelf to find countless books and thought to herself. Losing face is just a small thing. But the important thing is that this flower is a gift from my little sister Doris. What if I take care of her? Damn it, little sister knows how I can explain it. In the future, what can be done is that even if we hold Buddha's feet temporarily, we have to think of a solution, the method to save the flower's life first. The rose behind Lin G's back withered and fell out. One eye looked at Lin G very questioningly. Lin G's face was covered in sweat and thought, if there really is no solution, then I have no other choice. In addition to taking fresh manure from the garden to save its life. The smell is a bit brown, but fortunately there have been no visitors lately. When Lin G thought there were no visitors and had selected a tall pile of books, Moon put it away. The voice called, "Boss." Outside. Lin G questioned. Lin G and the girl walked near the door and looked at Lin G, thinking, central government. Are they from the Supreme Police Station? Quote. Lin G saw a ban sign posted outside. Her eyes flashed, and she thought, normally, people from the Supreme Police Department will be people close to people from the central government. And they won't be easy to deal with. Easily be dispatched. Obviously the reason they appear here now is most likely related to the terrible fire a few days ago. Lin G imagined a huge fire in her heart. In recent days, the television next door has also continuously updated related news. The exact cause is still being investigated. But 2 sources of the fire have been identified. One is the location of the drainage system. 10 kilometers. There are also rumors that it is an experimental base in the central district and seems to be man-made. Maybe under the eyelids of the central district such a thing happened. It's hard to blame the authorities. Cow is angry again. Moon was now extremely curious and asked, what's going on? Lin G patted the girl's head and said, come inside. Lin G looked at the girl and explained, Central District has sent people here to investigate the fire. There is a high possibility that they came here to look for criminals. Have you read about the high police section in my document? Moon heard Lin G's worry and said, their main purpose is not to come to me. Lin G's eyes flashed red. Moon remained silent and did not speak. Lin G smiled and asked, it also means that the question is likely to come here to find you. Right. It seems that classmate Moon is finally willing to confide in me. But right now you are still a person without a household registration. You sure don't want to be caught. Right, Lin G replied, Moon looked at Lin G's back and remembered countless other backs whispering, I can't know what the Truth Association has discovered, whether I escaped or not. I don't know how they will handle my escape. But even if the people from the Truth Association really came to investigate, they mainly came to find someone. Took 3 precious experimental samples away. But not having an authentic household registration is the key problem. At this time someone pushed the bookstore door open. The bell jingled. Lin G and the girl looked over and saw 3 silhouettes. Their footsteps hurriedly entered the bookstore. A pair of eyes and purple pupils behind the glass were flashing at. A blonde man wearing a police uniform led 2 soldiers in. The blonde hair asked, we are from the Supreme Police Station. Didn't know it was close. Have you seen anyone suspicious here?